Well, former Indian diplomat Suresh K. Goel is now joining us live from New Delhi. Ambassador Goel, welcome to the broadcast. What do you make of Trump's trade war with Canada, Mexico and China? Let's start from there.
Well, clearly, Trump had already announced, even before his election, as a part of his campaign, about what he thinks about these three countries and several other countries. For him, the major issue for American trade policy is tariffs, and not only tariff, but tariffs combined or in conjunction with the immigration policies, in conjunction with the other crime. And he really believes that the trade with these countries is partly contributing to those issues, and therefore the tariffs. Yes, I wanted to speak about India, but maybe later.
We will later and shortly after that. Mr. Ambassador, the effects are immediate, but could take some time to be felt. But help us make sense of how the tariffs could disrupt global supply chains.
The latest trade analysis and the GDP analysis in the USA clearly indicates that the American exports or the American manufacturers are becoming more expensive compared to several other countries simply because of the cost of labor. Now, by reducing or by increasing the tariff, even the input costs are going to increase or reduce the supplies of those products into the country, thus impacting on the production within the USA, labor cost, employment rate, etc., etc. Number two, if you impose tariffs, Mexico has already announced increased tariff. Canada has announced 25% tariff. Other countries are going to come and fill in the gap in case they don't have any tariff. So there is going to be huge disruption and change in the way the supply chains behave. And I think in the process, the vulnerable country really will be the USA and the countries like Canada and Mexico, whose trade is going to be impacted. But China, Vietnam, etc. could benefit from this disruption.
Mr. Ambassador, let's now talk about India. India has managed to cushion itself. But in your view, what are the sticking points in India, and what do you make of how the Indian Finance Ministry is not taking chances?
I think in the case of India, it's not the trade per se, which really is important in my view, really. Trade is not very high compared to the size of the two economies. The issue is that India is important for the USA as a balancer or as a hedge against China in Indo-Pacific and the South China Seas. And therefore, I think India will continue to be important for Trump as long as Trump feels that China is a threat. But today, when he said that the duties against China will be only 10%, I think there is a possibility of Trump going soft on China if the things change. In my view, India, besides actually trying to restructure the tariffs on imports, etc., will have to really work on two fronts: becoming a manufacturing hub, becoming a part of the global supply chains, and number three, most importantly, impress on the USA that the quid pro quo for being what they want is not just trade, but access to technology and the products that India needs in the high technology sector.
Mr. Ambassador, finally, as we wrap up this discussion, what will be your advice to Asian countries when, Trump decided to impose tariffs on these three countries? How can they remain optimistic going forward?
I don't think they can remain optimistic. Every country which has a trade advantage with the USA is vulnerable. And therefore, I think it's useful to develop a coherent strategy now rather than later before Trump strikes again.
All right. Ambassador Goel, thank you very much for your insights and for talking to us today.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.